All right, there we go. Sarah, sorry for the break there. We just needed to get that done.
No problem whatsoever.
Thank you so much. Go ahead.
All right, so I believe we...
I'm sorry, Sarah. We had a press member ask. Ms. Hill, are you on the line?
Present.
Mr. Ard?
Yo!
All right. Thank you, sir. I'm sorry for that. Go ahead.
No problem. Just, okay, want to make sure nobody had any questions about Watson. I think that's where we finished up.
Mr. Kirby?
The only thing I was going to say earlier was to Sarah, which I was very impressed with the questions you've asked so far, and you have indeed found strengths in each of the candidates so far, so you have impressed me so far.
Good.
Ms. Hill?
I'm good, but thank you, Sarah. I've enjoyed the overview.
Mr. Ard?
No question.
All right. Go ahead, sir.
All right, so we'll get to Mr. Willingham, which is the last one in the Tier 1 category. All right. So, had a good conversation with Mr. Willingham. Obviously, he's kind of switched gears for a couple of years, but would like to go back, as he said, into the trenches. Feels like that would be more what he professionally would like to do. Obviously, working through the Metropolitan Planning Organization or the COG there, diversity of work in different local governments, talked about being able to lead a team, through different types of scenarios and being able to work with different types of mayors and communities, being able to guide a professional staff, as he called it. He talked about a lot of work they did in the small towns after the tornadoes of 2011. And he talked about, really working with those small towns from top to bottom. Some of them had to, completely redo redevelopment plans, managing funding through those, how they would recover, and then what that would look like afterwards. So they did a lot of work through redoing their ordinances, making sure they were up to date so that when people started rebuilding, they wouldn't have issues to cover in that regard. So he's had a broad experience as a planner. He is a certified planner. Talked about his leadership style and being able, he called it more situational style leadership and fitting into the appropriate situation. Often he talked about leadership from a perspective of people that work for him, leadership from a perspective of even some of his fellow department heads if they were looking to him for leadership, or even when as far as to talk about even in your private life. It could be just situational, but being able to understand that different types of situations take different types of leaders, and felt like that he was flexible enough in his leadership style to figure out whatever would work for that situation. And each individual is different. The institutional context could be different. So the goal, is to accomplish the task. So we have to know the mission, and it could be, and those are very situational. So that's what he talked about from that perspective. Talked about, being able to help. Sometimes there could be a steep learning curve for maybe a resident or maybe a developer or even a new council member. And so sometimes understanding that steep learning curve is something that he should be a part of, and helping, to flatten that curve, if you will. That seems to be a term we hear often a lot right now. But he talked about being able to, working within the constraints and seeing how the operation is and what's the latitude in finding the resources in order to be able to address some of those situational learning episodes that he called it. So obviously read through the One Decatur plan and was very knowledgeable about that. Was able to even talk to some of the very specifics within it that that I was not personally aware of, but we did talk about that for a little bit and what that plan means to Decatur and how that's a part of what you're doing there. Talked about, an understanding of, as a planner, having to work with different areas within the planning realm, whether that means inspections or zoning or the comprehensive plan, whatever that is being able to put a plan that's been put in place to guide decision-making so that you as a council can support those decisions and accomplish things through those goals and expectations. That's how they've been defined through those plans, and that's what the employees have to use in order to keep moving forward. And so understanding those needs and how that works together was something that he felt like he was very good at and something that he's been a part of in different situations. Talked about, obviously giving his professional opinion, but respecting the opinion of others and knowing that what the objectives are and getting the residents engaged and earning trust through providing good advice to them. He felt like that was really a major part of his role, was being able to provide good advice. And he also talked about there are reasons why, a Board of Appeals is there, and so sometimes when you have to say no, that's what that board is for. And so going through that process and understanding that while we want to help the residents as much as possible, sometimes we do have to say no, and that's just part of that learning process. Again, going back, he's written several zoning codes for municipalities, both large and small. He talks about there's a lot of good examples out there that we can use. There's development codes for downtown development. There's development codes for industrial development, and being able to mesh those into one plan as Decatur has is important, and understands that if that needs to be done in the future, then he can also do that as well. Talked about growth and obviously with Decatur and the area that could be expanding based upon the automotive industry. Need to even talk about transportation connectivity and worker mobility and how that's going to work for Decatur. With a lot going on, there's going to be he talked about it being a fun process that he would love to have a part of. And so the other thing he talked about was one thing that he felt like sometimes we don't do as much of in the planning world is showcase our quality of life and all the things that we have to offer and things that drive people into our communities. And it's one thing that he's been trying to work through in some of the areas that he can. So he talked about working through some of the smaller communities and helping them with set up some one-stop shops, and sometimes they were the go-to for that one in his previous job. And obviously he's got a lot of a great work experience in that regard and understands how those processes work, and has done a fair amount of those processes as well. So his references, his first reference was his former supervisor when he was at the COG in Northwest Alabama. He was a planner then. He was recognized as top-notch. Eventually became director of another department, but they still work together. Insight into planning, knowledgeable in zoning is very impressive. He's a smart fellow, got along well with people, worked with a variety of mayors, worked a lot with FEMA grants, obviously at the time when the tornadoes came through. Handled the different personalities, the different characteristics of the different mayors and citizens that he was dealing with. Only stepped in from assistance. He led his team, very motivating, gets to the bottom of things. He sorts through the weeds and reasons things out. Great analytical and reasoning skills, good with follow through, a good communicator, can speak impromptu if needed. Said he witnessed him speaking to a pretty crowd about a zoning issue and was able to calm them down and doesn't antagonize, that he shows them where he's coming from on the standpoint. and also listens to where they're coming from. Talks about communicate on all levels, has respect, top-notch. Said he was analytical, smart, and personable. And his second reference is a former subordinate when he worked at the COG. And talked about him bringing in a lot of software into the program, some routing software that they were using for some of their routing. Talked about his help with transit and knowledgeable planning and government. Talked about helping them. He wanted to challenge their ideas and make them better leaders. He really made me think. Very respectful of other people's positions. He did not micromanage. He had an open door. They could bounce ideas off of each other. He would challenge us to make better decisions. Was very motivating. It gets exciting. He gets excited, and that excitement is contagious. He's a team player. He's amazing with people at work. Talked about him being a good communicator. He listens to ideas and thoughts. Reference said he misses their conversations when discussing ideas. Knowledgeable, knows his stuff, is very informed, intelligent, but does not try to use big words or showy vocabulary. He talks to where people can understand what he's saying. It said that he would be knowledgeable, humble, and kind. Any questions?
Mr. Kirby?
Not me.
Ms. Hill?
Ma'am.
Mr. Ard?
No. Council President, I'd like to jump in if I could. Is
Yes,
it okay?
sir. Yes, sir.
Thank you. Just point of information to the council that this candidate was a finalist for the NARCOG executive director role, for which Robbie Cantrell was selected. So he would have been the second candidate. That's all.
Thanks for sharing.
Rochelle, are we going over tier 2 as well, or just tier 1? I'm sorry, that wasn't clear at the beginning.
I don't recommend tier 2. I think there is one candidate in there that Sarah wanted to review who had a higher salary requirement than the city is prepared to meet, but the tier 2 candidates are lesser qualified than the 7 that she just presented.
Council, are you okay with that? And if you have any questions, you can most certainly ask Rochelle or Sarah.
So tier 2 are less qualified, but one of them asked for a higher salary.
Correct. So tier 2, in my professional opinion, are not as qualified as the individuals in tier 1, except for Mr. Moore, who I do feel is qualified, but has asked for a higher salary. And so knowing that the city had probably given me the highest salary range, I put him in tier 2, knowing that we crossed his requirements.
I'm sorry, Sarah, I didn't hear. Did you say Mr. Moore?
Correct. That's correct.
Did you make a notation of the salary he requested in his packet?
Yes.
He had $155,000 in his packet,
Okay.
and he said the best that he could do was $150,000.
All right, Council.
Well, at least thanks for telling us his name so that we can review it.
All right, Council, is everyone okay with that? Mayor, are you okay with that? Rochelle, are you okay with that?
I am.
Not going over tier 2, let me clarify what I was asking. All right, any overall questions for Sarah from council? Mr. Kirby?
Sarah, can you find my email on the city's website so I can send you those questions I had?
Absolutely. You want me to just send you an email?
Yeah, and as far as I'm concerned, once I ask for those questions, if they all agree to answer them, they can be shared with everybody.
Okay.
Thank you, Charles.
You're welcome.
Christy, do you have anything?
Not at the moment.
Mr. Ard?
No.
Mayor?
Thank you.
Rochelle?
I have no questions. I think at this point, Sarah might have a recommendation, but we would ask that the council take a look at the 7 Tier 1 candidates, and, you know, at some point, hopefully we'll be past the COVID crisis soon, but I think we're at critical state and need to start interviews as soon as possible if council finds favor with any or all of these candidates.
Sarah, this is Paige again. Yes, I'd like to hear your professional opinion of these Tier 1 candidates, who you feel best kind of plugs the hole that we've asked for.
You know, I was really impressed with Mr. Long, and Mr. Poole, Mr. Willingham, and Miss Singh.
I'm sorry, that last one?
Sing.
Okay, thank you.
Miss Singh, yes.
Thank you.
I think that they have a mix of experience that kind of covers a lot of what's in the department. Maybe not every single thing in the department, but they've been exposed to it enough, and they've got enough experience that they could meet a lot of the challenges that are forward with the case, and have a lot of the same experiences that you've already been through in some situations.
Would you repeat the ones that you liked?
Mr. Long, Mr. Poole, Miss Singh, and Mr. Willingham.
That's 2,
Thank
4,
you.
5, and 7 on your list.
Sarah,
Correct.
this page again, I'd just like to say thank you. You've done a fantastic job. I know it's a hard job because I don't see Mr. Wally Terry's name on there, so it's hard to replace him. But I appreciate what you've done. I know you put a lot of hard work and effort into it. And it'd be a pleasure to meet you someday. So, anything else from council? Rochelle?
Could we get some guidance on when we think we might want to move forward with either Zoom interviews or in-person interviews?
Can we let you know Monday at the meeting?
Absolutely.
Okay. So
I second that.
Okay, council, we will give direction on Monday as to the direction we're going.
Thank you very much for your time.
Hey, Rochelle, I
Thank
wanted
you,
to say
Sarah.
you too. Thank you, Rochelle. You
Thank
did
you.
a fantastic job.
Thank you, Ms. McGee.
Thanks, Rochelle. Thanks, Sarah.
Thank you.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you.
All righty.
Good night.
Night, y'all too.
This